Hello and welcome to another version of the Light Reading Podcast here at OFC. My name is Phil Harvey. I am the editor at Light Reading, and I'm here with Sterling Perrin, my colleague at Heavy Reading. Hey, Sterling.
Hi, good to see you.
Thanks for giving me a minute of your time, because everybody in the optical networking universe has had a few minutes of your time this week, it seems like.
It's been quite a week. It's fun to be back, though.
You've been very busy, and that's good. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you, since we're kind of getting toward the end of what is ostensibly day 4 of this show, because it kind of began technically on Sunday, is what has there been any? There's like multiple themes and threads going on. I'm wondering if anything stood out to you as like a major development, because from what I can tell, it just seems like there's like 11 different bandwidth bottlenecks at various parts of the network that everybody's trying to fix.
Yeah, it's an interesting show. I mean, it is great just to be back and meetings with people in real life and hallway conversations and all that, and get a sense of just, this is what's happening at this time in optics. The show itself, I would say, is probably more of incremental type of announcements. But there really is, and it's not necessarily even to be negative to say incremental, but there is real progress on the IP-over-DWDM integrated optics on routers. I mean, I think for me and kind of my universe of coverage, that really is the big trend. That yes, it's existed, for years back in terms of things that are demoed, but to see the real progress in terms of interoperability demo from like the OIF with I don't know how many companies they got to interoperate on that thing, to the breadth of types of modules that are being introduced from different companies, the number of companies introducing modules, which is a great step forward.
Yeah, it seems like it's hitting on a number of fronts, and I guess I'm wondering what was real this time about it that didn't show up in the past. I mean, obviously the technology's advanced quite a bit. Yeah,
I mean, commercial availability of product and shipping. Acacia announced just before the show, which I would consider still a show announcement of tens of thousands of ports being shipped, obviously to the hyperscalers. Commercial products, out. Systems vendors also starting to buy in, so it's not just a bunch of components companies, kind of hawking wares.
I think about it too, but also the thing that wasn't present the last time IP-over-DWDM made a run at it was this need for data center connectivity inside the data center, and the cloud providers being such voracious consumers of it.
Yeah, they, several years back, I don't know how many at this point, but the hyperscalers, they became more and more of a presence at the show, and then they really took over the show. Yeah. And then the ZR, I think, was maybe their biggest output from kind of that move. Yeah. They've defined this market, and now and I think the service providers would say this, that the telcos would say they're trying to follow on the coattails of what was done there, and how do we port this into our networks and make use of all this innovation.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing now, and I'm curious as to where that goes from here, because obviously they're cutting down costs in terms of some metro network connections. And one of the folks from Nokia said this, that like right now service providers are kind of reaching a point where they're just looking at a bunch of different architecture decisions in the metro and in the data center, and reevaluating since the costs and the costs have changed, and also the demand side has changed so drastically in the last like 2 or 3 years.
I would say the status quo way of doing things, again, the hyperscalers really pioneered the idea that you can think differently. Yeah. The metro is largely where that's being, a metro to access, and telcos are absolutely looking at all these different approaches. The OpenXR optics is just one example of that kind of thing, where a few years ago you'd look at an innovation like that and say, science experiment, but here you have a number of operators that are joining that forum and really trying to push this forward. So just new ways to look at these networks from components, but all the way up to systems level, and then the overall architecture, how that's affected. But it's real service provider driven.
Yeah. Oh, we've got we're outside, obviously, so excuse the bird noises. That's not some PR person squawking at us. I guess the other interesting thing was there's a number of startups that are kind of getting funding and sort of announcing their intent to be competitive in this space. One of them that I ran into was called EFFECT Photonics,
right,
that are kind of becoming a competitor to, I guess, Lumentum in this space. Did you have a chance to talk to them, or did you, what do you think of what they're doing?
Yeah, I did, and glad you brought it up. I would have brought it up if you hadn't. Yeah, they are, and they are an example of when you look at this pluggable optics and the opportunities coming from that to actually bring in a new company to do it, and they're an example of that. They acquire. I didn't even know Viasat had a DSP business.
I had no idea.
They found it, bought it, and then they've got this PIC technology, and they're going to put together a module, and to this stuff that we were just talking about, IP-over-DWDM for carrier service providers.
Yeah.
To try to make a go of it. It's a tough business, but interesting to have a new entrant, and if they can do what they're saying, which of course is the old startup, that's what they do.
We'll see what happens.
We say a lot, and then but they seem pretty confident that they'll hit their mark.
Yeah, they announced funding. They announced, kind of like this was their coming out party, kind of. And what was interesting about the Viasat components acquisition, or that DSP technology acquisition, was, well, like you said, first of all, it was a well-hidden business inside of Viasat.
No idea.
But also a very interesting company to be aligned with, because Viasat is obviously a company that can, that knows their way around the technology universe, and wringing cost out of networks, albeit a different kind of network. And so I think they come to the pairing with EFFECT Photonics is going to be pretty interesting, because it gives them both. They're sort of made for one another, and yet they've also got these financial backers that know the market pretty well.
They made an investment in, as you probably know. Yeah, so they're putting some money. There's not really a lot of stupid money in optics these days, because I think the VCs and everybody got burned to death. Over and over again.
Yeah, it happened many more times than they probably would have wanted.
It's not the 90s where any kind of silly napkin becomes. So I think that was so that is the one kind of interesting new company, and the coming to OFC over the past several years, there aren't that many. The company itself's not brand new either. They've been around, but it's a new market.
Yeah, kind of a new market for them, and kind of like you said, the sort of the combination of the new integration story plus the money suddenly makes them an interesting competitor, or at least an interesting, that's the thing, is supplier diversity is another conversation that's happening on the floor. Not just because of the normal reasons, like, hey, all the systems vendors are buying up and vertically integrating. That's been that continues to be a trend. But the supply chain itself is another reason that supplier diversity's kind of come up. I haven't really heard of any, good workarounds for that. It just seems like people are ordering earlier and earlier.
Right. There's definitely talk about that. I don't follow that as closely, but absolutely. How to fix the supply chain was a big.
It seems like it's going to fix itself eventually, but it's just still going to take time. I didn't really hear any silver bullet, solutions for that this time around. It seemed like people are all in kind of the same boat.
Yeah, and the thing with optics too is it's relative to almost anything else, it's a low volume business. So for all these things, other applications, anything consumer, automotive, a lot of these things are going to drive, and then optics has got to kind of deal with what they're given. So it's always a tough spot for low volume telecom.
Yeah, as we go to the rest of throughout the rest of the year, what are you looking to see happening in the optical networking space generally, or do you have any particular trend you're just going to watch from afar?
Yeah, I've been certainly the ZR plus trend and how that moves. So always looking at how that moves from the hyperscaler to the telecom world, and how quickly It's not going to be just a straight port over. A lot of stuff needs to be done.
Yeah.
But the interest is there, so we're going to continue to follow that. And then in open and disaggregation generally, which ties in a bit to the 400ZR Plus, but also broadens out to other things. And then I'm looking a lot in the next couple of months at automation, and but really practical automation. There's a lot. One of the things that probably I might get yelled at, but largely missing from the show is when you see things about automation. There's a lot of focus on kind of weird things that maybe people think are cool to listen to, but there's actually a lot of practical ways to use, these open interfaces in automation to improve just speeding up of delivering a new service, the multi-layer integration and benefits to those sorts of things.
I get a little skeptical when people go, talk about spending billions of dollars to fine-tune one thing just so they can prevent truck rolls, and I'm just like, were the truck rolls that expensive? That kind of thing. Like I don't know that some of these things that they're doing to reduce headcount or reduce labor or reduce the number of people that touch it, were you really doing that much? I mean,
it depends on of how many, and this is like where access is. A lot of things start in maybe in a core or metro in a simple network, but I think the more they can bring those to the access, and then you're multiplying that by literally orders of magnitude, so those things start to.
Yeah, anything in the access network is definitely a volume business. So obviously any little tweak in automation pays off almost immediately.
It can. Well, as you say, get to do the right things and have practical value. But anything cost saving that adds up, maybe not individually, but across tens of thousands, it will be of appeal. A lot with optics, a lot of these we're going to do some kind of weird new service tends to make me eyes glaze over because optics is still largely plumbing, no matter.
And then that's why I think it's. That's why I think people, it's easy to overlook, in a tradition, in kind of the normal news cycle of what's happening, but it's also why I think this show why people are so excited to, see one another and stuff like that, is because they don't get to talk about this stuff.
No.
At length.
There's a lot of spirited debates and conversations going on.
About to say that some people just arguing minutia over things that you're just like, really? Oh man, So
once a year,
Yeah, once a year they get it all out of their system, and I think I've gotten this show out of my system as of right now. So we'll sign off from here. Sterling, thanks for your time as always.
Yeah, as always, good to see you.
And please, if you're listening to this on the audio stream, please check out, please subscribe or give us a like on Apple Podcasts. That always helps. And if you're watching on the video, why don't you look at a couple more light reading articles while you're here. And thanks for listening. Bye.